Welcome back to Media7. Did you read a newspaper today? Did you buy it? Or just read it online? This week's Newsmash looks at what they're calling a crisis for newspapers all around the world. Over in Australia, that's the place where the companies who own our newspapers live, they're fretting about the future of newspapers.
While the global financial meltdown has hit newspapers hard, some argue the rise of the internet and the subsequent collapse of classified ad revenue poses a fundamental threat to the viability of the business model that has sustained big city newspapers for centuries.
Over the last 3 or 4 decades, big corporations moved in, bought up newspapers and ransacked them for profit, which means that they cut the staff and increased the output, made a lot of money, but there was no spare fat left on the bone.
And it's bad all over.
As we turn now to a major crisis, the crisis of newspapers in this country.
Everyone in the newsroom knows advertising revenues are plummeting, but the show has to go on. No matter what the publication, the burning issue is operating costs. It's the same here. Since the start of the year, 60 jobs have been cut.
So what to do? Pay people to read the newspapers like the French?
The French government is taking action over similar concerns. They've pledged over $1 billion in an attempt to save the country's newspaper industry. They even plan to pay for newspaper subscriptions for everyone who turns 18.
Form a cartel.
I think you have to start making people pay for it at some point, and the sector is considering it. Some of our competitors are now considering making their offerings subject to charges instead of putting it all on the net for free.
Can you do it all at once, even though you're in competition?
Yes, if you comply with the laws on competition.
Ask the government.
It's much more like the other pillars of our democracy, like the parliament or the courts, or indeed like the arts and culture, which is actually heavily funded by government, and maybe it has to move in that direction.
But there, blinking like a lizard in the sunlight at this month's Sun Valley Media Mogul Camp, it's Rupert Murdoch. And don't you worry, kids, because the digger has a plan.
We have a lot of plans I'm not ready to disclose yet.
And last week, pursuing the if we all say it, it'll happen theory, Financial Times editor Lionel Barber made this prediction in a speech.
I confidently predict that within the next 12 months, almost all news organisations will be charging for content.
He did concede he didn't know how. That was your Newsmash, and no, we didn't pay for any of it. But things are happening here too. NBR publisher Barry Coleman declared in a letter to readers last week that he wasn't waiting for the sea change. The paper is embarking on a great new journalism adventure, as he put it, making its best online stories available only to paying subscribers. If you're feeling a sense of déjà vu, that's because NBR has been there before. It canned its first attempt to charge for online content 10 years ago, after selling a total of 200 subscriptions. Will it work this time? The internet critics have not been kind. Mind you, Barry Coleman has not been kind to them either. He's with me now. Welcome, Barry. This has to be the first question. You canned your first attempt to get people to subscribe to your content 10 years ago.
Yep.
It didn't work then. Why is it going to work now?
The course of history is with us. Most things in business that work are because the timing's right. And you can't say really, well, I've said that the last one didn't work, but it's because it didn't make enough money.
But you were making money, weren't you?
Yeah, we were making money, but the worst thing in business is to have a venture that makes a little bit of money. What you want is something that fails or succeeds. If it's an outright failure, it's an easy decision. If it makes lots of money, it's easy. When you get these little dribbly things that are half right and half wrong, you've really got to abandon them. And I think the timing is no one knows what the timing is right. So I think back in '99, which is 10 years ago, we had to go at a formula in that which we thought would work. And it certainly attracted masses of hits. In the first year, it attracted nearly $1 million worth of sponsorship. So we thought we were onto something. But the following year, it was like 650. On year 3, it was 350. So I just said, well, why are we doing this? We're not a charity. We don't think that this formula is working for us, and clearly it's not going to provide any profit. So
and then you were obliged to come back and do the same thing again, though, weren't you? You were obliged to have a website.
No.
Well, you canned it and then you came back.
No, we're not obliged to come back. We're not obliged to do anything.
Right.
But the model of newspapers giving away content simply won't work. So we haven't done that. It wasn't until April last year that we went back and designed a newsroom that would run on a daily basis. So we've been like about 15 months building up to this point today. And the reason we're doing that is because there is so much news out there, and I don't believe that the web has to be an enemy of newspapers. So I'm not putting NBR content from print onto the website. It's a completely separate service for completely separate reasons.
So what will you be charging for? What will be there that subscribers only will get? Well,
there's a great deal of misinformation on this point because people have got the idea, some of them think that we're going to put NBR copy on web and charge for it, and other people think we're going to charge for news. Well, news is a commodity. There's no future in charging for a commodity because everyone's got it. So all the public company announcements and the political announcements and all that spin doctor stuff, that will still go out as news on our main site. Well, the spin doctor stuff won't actually. We're pretty good at culling that. But the major announcements that affect business are still there, and there's no charge for them because they're commodities, and that's a service that we will provide. So what the paid content is for stuff that our journalists find that no one else has got, and that is useful information to business. So that category will probably make up at most about 20% of the content.
But what will it be? Will it be columns? Will it be your satire? What will it be?
Well, the bits of satire, no, it'll mainly be where a journalist has gone and researched the story and has got it first, or it's got a story that no other paper's covering. So what will make people actually come on and subscribe over the course of time is that they are specifically mentioned, and it's behind a firewall, they can't read it. Their company's mentioned or their industry is mentioned. And already in the last few days we've had this running, the hit rates we've got for subscriptions have come off very specific stories on industries that you and I don't really care about. The people in them care about them a great deal. And when they see a name of someone they know, they're all subscribing to come on. So this is not a quick bang. This is going to be a series over the weeks and months ahead where people who want to find useful information that no one else is running, because 80% of our content is not coming from PR companies, then we will find, I believe, this time round, because we've got a better idea now what we're doing, that we will gradually build up a subscription.
Right, well, we're going to pause now and have a look at one of your critics. One of Barry's critics, as I said, and to some extent a competitor, is Bernard Hickey, the public face of financial news and information service interest.co.nz. I popped in to visit Bernard at the company's tiny Herne Bay office. Well, Bernard, what do you do and how do you make your money?
We have advertising on the site from banks and finance companies and others. We also sell data to banks and the Reserve Bank and various other people. And we also sell some of our news coverage and charts and tables to media companies like APN and Fairfax and others.
So, as you put it yourself, that's donating the content to the readers out there and selling the data.
Yes, we sort of stumbled over this as well, that because people will not pay for news online, and because we've worked out we can build a community around that news and analysis, but we've also got some very valuable data that we collect every day, in fact every hour, on interest rates, all sorts of other economic factors. And then we have connections with banks and finance companies and the Reserve Bank, and they can see we've got this fantastic data and they want everything. So we sell it to them. And that's, you could say, our website is an entree for those people to know, hey, they've got something really valuable beneath the surface here and we can sell it to you.
And I'm sure Barry Coleman would say that's a great niche, but it's not the same as having a newspaper with reporters who go to court and things like that.
Yep, we're not pretending to be a newspaper that's covering everything or that we go to everything. We know that people look at lots of things online, including us. We focus on the thing that we think we're good at and we know the most about and we think we're the best at. And we hope that there's enough advertising support for that. We found that's the case so far.
Now, you can give content away to draw a crowd. I'm sure that Barry would say he can't afford to do that because his editorial is his product. Why should he give away his editorial?
Well, in this new era, that's the only way you can work. Giving away your editorial is the way that you get people to come to your site. Now, you can make money from advertising from that or from some other ways. And there are some financial news sites like the Wall Street Journal and the FT.com that have a large chunk of their site open and then they charge subscriptions. And that's what Barry's trying to do. My view, though, is that there isn't a big enough audience in New Zealand for him to do that, and certainly not at the prices he's charging.
Now, Barry, I thought Bernard was quite nice about you there. You weren't very nice about him last week. That Scribbler column on your editorial page, you called him a twat. I mean, I think this is one of the reasons for the response to what your announcement was that you railed against ignorant, unqualified bloggers. Why did you feel the need to do that?
I've never called him a twat. I think he's quite a nice guy.
The word appeared in the column?
Yeah, but I didn't write the column.
You really?
Cross my heart, point to God.
Fair enough then. But
if I was to go around and edit out things I didn't like in our columnists, we wouldn't have any decent columnists. So I wasn't even aware of it until after it had been published.
But why did you feel the need to go on the attack at these bloggers? I mean, you hire David Farrer, the country's best-known blogger, as a columnist. He's not a journalist. He's not qualified.
What I was doing in my announcement was simply to point out to the business audience that the model we have at the moment was crazy, that it must collapse in due course, because you cannot have whole expensive newsrooms running providing free information. Now, in fact, it has collapsed because, as you've heard earlier in this program, there are 5,000 spin doctors and 2,000 journalists. We also heard 80% of the news is generated by PR people, because the news service has in effect collapsed already. The emperor has got clothes at the moment. So that era of investigative reporting and quality journalism, frankly, is just about gone. And that's because we were invaded by these PR people who've taken control. The newspapers can't afford...
I have to take you up on that. It's a market, and your readers are going to decide, aren't they, whether what you're offering them for $300 a year is worthwhile.
Yeah.
And it's your job to make it worthwhile for them.
Absolutely. Yeah. Our audience are senior business people, by definition, and to them the amount of money we would charge them at an introductory offer at $89 is chump change. They're not interested in whether that's a lot of money or not, although the bloggers think this is a big deal. $89 is a big deal. Business people actually don't care. So long as they get value, we've got to give them stories that they can't get anywhere else, and stories that are useful. Now, you will find ultimately...
Is this something that you can only do for an audience like yours? Because the Herald tried it with premium content and it was a debacle. Their advertising impressions dropped and it didn't work. Is this a very specialist niche thing?
Yeah, but I admire the Herald for having a go. They went out and had a shot at it. They were second, we were first, but we both mucked it up, really, because we couldn't bring the crowds with us. But our audience...
That's the whole point, though. If you put your content behind a paywall, the crowd doesn't come to it. Isn't that the big risk for you? No,
well, we don't want the crowd. No, we have something like almost 100,000 readers. They are the rich and the powerful. If our demographic, if we had 400,000 readers, we wouldn't attract the advertising we do. Our advertisers don't want to talk to 400,000. They want to talk to the top of the tree, the people with cash to spend. So we're not in a market of trying to grow numbers, and we never have been. And our net will be the same focus. I mean, it will be going after people who want information they can't find anywhere else. And it's our challenge. It'll lift the whole quality of journalism in the newsroom, because the journalist is now sitting, they're not writing a story and putting it on a blog. They're writing a story thinking, would someone buy this? There's a huge lift.
OK, we almost have to finish here, but just a quick answer. What do you think Murdoch's going to do? He's been making all the noises. What's he going to do? He'll
outfox everyone as he usually does, and he'll make millions doing it. The man is a genius, and the reason everyone hates him is because he always keeps winning. And he looks silly. They have those silly pictures with the dark glasses. The guy's a genius. Well, I'm sure you'll be watching him as closely as I will. Yeah, thank you, Barry Coleman. Okay. And that is our show this week. Thank you, Barry, for joining us. And to our PR panel, Simon Lambourne, Karen Beanland, Helen Sissons and Jock Anderson. And thanks to you for watching. We'll be back with Media7 at the same time next week. Until then, goodbye.